The impeachment trial may be over, but President Trump is ramping up attacks on Democrats, critics, and Senator Mitt Romney. The president took a victory lap at the White House yesterday, where he delivered remarks in front of his family, cabinet, and Republican lawmakers. This comes after the Senate acquitted the president earlier this week. Weijia Jiang takes a closer look.
This is what the end result is.
President Trump flashed the front page headline for the country to see. Senators found him not guilty.
It's called total acquittal.
The speech, which the president coined a celebration, evolved into a full-throttle attack of everything from the Mueller investigation.
Russia, Russia, Russia. It was all bull.
To Senator Mitt Romney, the only GOP senator who voted to convict him.
Things can happen when you fail so badly running for president.
To the Democrats who impeached him.
Adam Schiff is a vicious, horrible person. Nancy Pelosi is a horrible person.
Before Mr. Trump's remarks, the House Speaker said this.
I pray hard for him because he's so off the track of our Constitution.
The president responded, questioning her faith.
She may pray, but she prays for the opposite. But I doubt she prays at all.
Former President Bill Clinton apologized after being acquitted in 1999.
I want to say again to the American people how profoundly sorry I am.
In sharp contrast, this was the only apology Mr. Trump offered.
I want to apologize to my family for having them have to go through a phony, rotten deal.
And while Mr. Clinton's 1-minute, 38-second address called for unity.
This must be a time of reconciliation.
For over an hour, the president did not.
These are the crookedest, most dishonest, dirtiest people I've ever seen.
And Weijia Jiang is with us now from the White House. So, Weijia, President Trump does seem as if he is out for revenge when it comes to Senator Mitt Romney. Or is it just a move-on situation now that the impeachment is over and done with? But I see the tweets from the president and the memes that he's using, and most of them, or some of them, are attacking Mitt Romney.
Right, and I don't anticipate he's going to stop anytime soon because it really puts a stain on what was supposed to be his day. The president had waited to talk about his acquittal. He planned these formal remarks inside the White House. And what were we talking about? The fact that it wasn't the entire GOP that stood behind him, but there was this break in Romney when he voted to convict President Trump. And we know that President Trump does not forget when he feels like he's been betrayed. And so, especially looking ahead, it's unclear just how much the president will unleash on Romney, who has said himself that he knows there will be consequences, but he had to follow his heart. And, he cited his religious faith as a reason. And by the way, Vlad, the president attacked that faith, not only Romney's, but also Speaker Pelosi's, which you saw in my piece there. And I was inside the room, and I can tell you that when he did that, when he said that Pelosi does not pray at all, you could hear the gasps. I think a lot of people, including his supporters, were shocked that he went there.
It just is. I'm trying to understand, Weijia, because Mitt Romney's not up for re-election in 2020. The Republicans need his votes. They need him to be aligned with the Republican Party in the United States Senate. So what does the president get out of it other than a sense of perhaps satisfaction that he's, hitting back, which is something that he has always said that he does, and also his supporters appreciate. But I don't see what the political strategy would be.
Well, I think it sends a message to other Republicans in case anyone ever thinks about crossing the president. It shows that he is not going to sit back and take it and move on, but he's going to make it a thing that could ultimately impact their political futures. And so this isn't just about Romney. This is about, what happens when you go against President Trump.
And Weijia, we've also learned that the White House is considering removing Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman. Of course, he was a key witness in the impeachment trial. Critics will see this, of course, as the president once again abusing his power and retaliating against Colonel Vindman. What are you hearing?
Yeah, so President Trump made very clear he blamed liars and leakers for his impeachment, but most of the people who raised concerns about his actions and the actions of his administration did so in public and under oath, and that includes Vindman. And CBS News has learned that he is expected to be pushed out of the National Security Council. Now, what's important here is that back in November, the National Security Advisor said on Face the Nation that he wants to downsize the NSC. And so you can imagine the White House is going to say, if Vindman leaves, it's because they wanted to shrink bureaucracy, and it has nothing to do with retaliation. Of course, it'll be interesting if that happens to see what Vindman says, but a lawyer for him so far says they don't know of any plan to move him out. So we'll see, because again, our sources are telling us otherwise. I will also mention that the former ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, penned an op-ed yesterday, and she said that we must not allow the United States to become a country where standing up to our government is a dangerous act. And so if Vindman is in fact pushed out, it does send a message to others in the administration, again, about what happens when you cross President Trump.
And Weijia, what happens, I guess, when you are in President Trump's favor? I think we saw a little bit of that on display yesterday during the president's victory lap, as he gave major shout outs and asked senators and members of Congress to stand for recognition, for claps and cheers from those in that room.
Absolutely. I mean, he called them out by name, especially those members of Congress who were his staunchest supporters. And, you know, that is a reward, because they can now go back to their constituents who, many of whom support President Trump, and say, you know, the president approves of me, and that's why you should too. But it did get a little bit weird, because the president was, you know, so emboldened, I think, and he was really relaxed in this room filled with his supporters, that he started to kind of go off on tangents and make jokes. For example, when he was praising Congressman Jim Jordan, he took a weird pivot by praising Jordan for never wearing a jacket, because he's obviously proud of his body. He told Steve Scalise that he was actually better looking after the shooting that he had to go through. So again, this was an hour and 2 minutes of freewheeling, of the president just saying whatever came to his mind, because there was no teleprompter, there was no script, and again, you never know what he's going to say.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, and we've talked about this, Weijia. You had the president there giving a huge shout out to Senator Mike Lee of Utah, who he was serving to sort of point the contrast between Senator Mitt Romney. And it's interesting to note that back in 2016, Mike Lee was one of those Republicans who actually went on Facebook to tell Donald Trump to drop out of the race, because he didn't think that he was the conservative idea for the party. He actually tried to stop President Trump's nomination, and now, of course, he's leading the charge to re-elect President Trump in 2020.
And that's a great point, Vlad, because, you know, if you're on President Trump's bad side, that doesn't mean you're there forever, because he has a lot of tumultuous relationships. In fact, when Mitt Romney decided to run for Senate, the president endorsed him, and that was after years of bad blood between the two. Of course, now they're feuding again, but, you know, I think the president kind of likes having these sort of tense relationships with people, and if you can overcome conflicts, if you can get back in his good graces, then sometimes that relationship is stronger, because he views it as someone who can go head to head with him. And so, you know, President Trump has a lot of unique characteristics in that way, and I think accepting challenges and welcoming them sometimes is one personality trait that we have seen time and time again.
Yeah, he likes to slug it out in the arena. Weijia Jiang, thank you as always. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Vlad.